Well, we've had a shift and change. Tony mentioned it. We all kind of thought, well, Lillard go maybe to the Heat. There's some wild rumors about him going to Toronto. He went to the Bucks. As a big change in the East. Tony Camino there. I'm Andy Billman here. We're going to talk about what that means for our Cavs. That is a big, huge shift. Tony, I'll let you lead off. I'm with the Charles Barkley's, Richard Jeffersons. You can't help to think the Bucks are a heavy favorite.
Yeah, the odds reflect that they should be on paper. This is probably definitely the most talented team Giannis has had.
Mm-hmm.
Damian Lillard's got a support staff, and this team on paper looks like they have no flaws, and they really should be those title contenders. They definitely it was a great trade for them. Lost Drew Holiday, which hurts, but they got Damian Lillard back, and when you compare all the shooting they have now with Giannis Antetokounmpo, it is going to be a nightmare for defenses.
If there's one positive Cavs fans, after these 2 years, the Bucks are going to have a lot of troubles. but that's our window. That's why I'm not in love with this. Some people are like, "Oh, you're overreacting." I don't think I am. Cavs have a 2-year window with Mitchell. This is the same kind of window now that the Bucks have. I love this for the Bucks. I hate this as a Cavs fan. I think it's a perfect complementary player. I actually think too it's going to help Middleton, who I think has been really worn down over the past years. Feeling that nothing against Drew Holiday. He's a wonderful defender and he's a total spark plug. In fact, he will be traded from the Trailblazers. Some contenders going to get a great player who's going to be very hungry to win. That said, Tony, I think Lillard's going to love playing with Giannis. I
Yeah,
think it's such a great matchup. All right, so when the Cavs have to play this team, my initial thought is Giannis is Giannis. I mean, at least we have Mobley who will be able to help with that situation. You can never stop Giannis, but he can help as a 5. The Lillard thing, every time I've seen the Blazers play the Cavs has just had nightmares of Lillard. It's not a good – and by the way, he's a great player. So that's my initial thoughts. Like, I think the Giannis thing, but now with Lillard, I'm worried about Lillard. I really am. Really concerned how they're going to slow him down.
yeah, it definitely takes away that you're not going to double Giannis ever. You can't. Because outside of just Lillard, this team has shooters: Brooke Lopez, Bobby Portis, Chris Middleton, Pat Connaughton, all shooters besides Giannis. So you're not going to be able to double him. And the concern about guarding Damian Lillard is, I think it would be Donovan Mitchell in a closing lineup scenario, but that's not something I feel amazing in. He's not a horrible defender, but Lillard is so good, and they're so good at hunting matchups. They're gonna find a way to get him switched on to Darius Garland, and nothing
Yep.
against DG because at his height, his defense is limited as it is, but it's gonna be a challenge to slow him down. So hopefully they have some chemistry issues. It doesn't bode well for the chances this year or next year, but the biggest thing with the window is if the Cavs can just show that they are right there with them. If they don't show they're too far off, I think it's not unreasonable to think Mitchell stays. But if we go through these next 2 years and we look like we're just in that same tier as the Knicks still, where we're looking to just win a series, then that could change things. So really, just still need to have progress. Don't This isn't a year where it's title or bust. We just need significant progress up into that tier, the top tier, maybe just below the Bucks and Celtics.
Yep, all well said. I think in these games, would not be surprised to see a little bit more Karis LeVert. Karis LeVert's actually not a half bad defender. He's not fantastic, but he's not terrible. And he actually does a nice job on boxing out. So I think that will actually help here. So keep Lillard out of getting second chances, which that's not really Lillard's game, but I think it's going to be. I think now with Giannis, I think it's going to really open up Lillard to go slashing that lane after a miss. In fact, I think that's going to be a big part of his game. He could never do that in Portland because he just didn't have a man that could really do that. With people focusing on getting on Giannis, I think people are going to forget about Lillard, and if he misses, he's going to swoop in there and get the bucket pretty easily. I think second chance points for him will be up too. The thing about this, Tony, to your point, this is really going to challenge, and thank God now the Cavs have a roster where maybe Okoro too. Maybe Okoro, because he is taller. Maybe he goes up against Lillard there. What do you think of that? Maybe Okoro, maybe? Because I know he's not the fastest, but boy, he's big. At least he can take some of the size away from Lillard.
Yeah, he's definitely the best defensive option to throw at him. 6'5", he's got a height advantage, he's got a strength advantage. He's our best defender. and our best guard defender by
Yes,
far.
yes, yes, yes.
The issues are going to be, can he shoot himself on the floor? He doesn't have to. He's been shooting himself off the floor lately, and we can't afford that on the offense to have a guy that's not being guarded. But Levert will be another option, like you mentioned, because of his length.
Yep.
He's not necessarily the quickest feet, but he can afford to lose a little bit because his wingspan makes up for it.
Yep.
It's going to be interesting, but the biggest concern is, and not really concern, the biggest thing to watch is the development of Garland and Mobley, because that's going to be how far this team goes. If they can, and this again is probably not going to be 1 year jump to stardom to dominating as MVPs, but the more they can develop their ceilings, the closer they get to their full potential. If they reach 90% of it, this is probably a Cavs team that's right there with the Bucks and the
Agreed.
Celtics. So while it is a tough move and it's making the road harder, things always happen. Things don't always go the way they're expected to. We look at those Nets teams that had all the talent in the world and worked when they played, but couldn't ever get it done. The Suns recently, great move in this for them though, by the way, but just it's not good for us, but it's not the end of the world. They can still, it's still more on them than anyone else.
They have not had Middleton around the last 2 years. He could certainly leave. That's not good. They've been really lucky outside of Middleton. They've actually had a fairly healthy club. I think if Giannis misses some time, obviously Lillard, which Lillard has missed time, so it's not like it's unusual for him for that. But I do agree with you. I think the key is for the Cavs. This is a team that's in your division, and I know the NBA doesn't mean as much as other things, but okay, they're in your division. But I agree with Tony. You can't be intimidated, but you have to be realistic. This is now changing the East, in my opinion. Huge. I mean, that's obvious. But to me, it's like we had a show previously. Who's this debate? Blah, blah. There's no debating. It's the Bucks.
Mm-hmm.
It's time to beat the Bucks. This whole season is going to be, once we get in the playoffs, can we beat the Bucks? Am I wrong? That's what I think now from here on out.
I think the Celtics have the potential to still match up
Sure.
with them.
Sure.
So I think it'll be something to keep an eye on. It in theory, you would think the Bucks are still the better team. So it'll just be interesting to see how it plays out. Just gotta keep your head down, get through the season, because you never know what happens come March, April. Maybe we get hotter and really start to hit our stride.
Well, right.
And I don't want to just rely on a team getting hot to win, but you see, we tend to wear down at the end of years instead of build up. If they can do the opposite and build themselves up for the playoffs, they're gonna have a shot.
Here's the one positive. There has been 2 games that I've seen over the last 2 years where the Cavs actually did a nice job on Giannis. And actually, Giannis complimented the Cavs one time after a press conference, saying it was like it just was not easy going up against them. Mobley, I think, is actually going to take another leap. Mobley does help here. Mm-hmm. It really does. It saves a lot of bacon because he can play a 5 and it's actually comfortable there and everything will be okay. So because of that, it's not, to Tony's point, it's not impossible. Because if you have someone who can actually take away Giannis, not for the whole game, but on certain possessions, and that takes away half your problems. So then it comes down to what you do with Lillard. And that'll have to be figured out, whether it's Okoro, whether it's Levert, maybe it's Mitchell sometimes. That's going to have to figure it out. But I will say, to give hope, Mobley's going to be key now.
Yeah.
Mobley's going to have to be healthy when they play the Bucks because he's going to be a big part of these games. He really is. All right, so that's that. The Bucks now have Lillard and Giannis, and they're already cracking champagne bottles. Good for Milwaukee. Bleh. All that to be said, let me bring some hope. It's not over. Tony's right about that. Long season and injuries always play a part of this game. But that's what I see here. Tony, real quickly, if you had to guess today in Vegas, do you see Milwaukee as the number 1 seed coming out?
As the number 1 seed,
not winning at all, not winning the East, just the number 1 seed going to play.
Yeah, I think they will be the number 1 seed because even if they do struggle, this is a newer thing. They're gonna have to learn how to play together. It's not, it's not a drastic change, but they're not gonna. And with all the new rules, they're not gonna just sit out games to sit them out. They're gonna use every single one as a feel-out process. So I would expect them to finish number 1, and especially with Porzingis. He's always missing time.
Right.
Even as good as he is, that's not a team that's going to rely on him to play 65, 70 games. I think the Bucks will rely on their guys to play a lot. And even if Dame misses time, they can still find ways to win without him.
Yep.
So, yeah, I would say they're probably the number 1 seed.
I think they will be too. So to everybody else out there, remember that. That's okay. Because once you get in the playoffs is where it counts. And that's what we learned last year. Because we were 4 seed at home. And No, it didn't matter much. Just get into the big dance, like to say. One last thought. I want to ask you about this too. I think because of this, though, it actually helps some of the other opponents. I think the Sixers now, the Bulls, all these other teams that were kind of going after Lillard, I think it's a big shot to them, worse than the Cavs. I think these teams really take a blow. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, those teams like the Bulls have kind of been teetering in the middle. They're probably going to give it one more year and then blow everything up.
Yeah,
And all these other, the Harden saga, if that ends with Harden not being back in Philly, they don't really have much of a chance. The Knicks haven't won in forever, so I don't expect them to just lay
sure.
down. But for a lot of the other contenders in the East, this is going to be all right. The Celtics and Bucks are the top dogs right now, and unless we think we can contend with them, there's no reason really going all in and making a big move.
Yeah, I think it hurts these second layer teams, which the Cavs are in the second layer. But to me now, after this, I would actually say it's the Cavs, Knicks, maybe the Sixers, probably in there too. But the Sixers don't scare me. Sixers run layer one, and Tony's right. Layer one is the Bucks and Celtics. Those are your top two. So there's a positive. That second layer teams, Miami, not so worried. I mean, all those kind of teams, they kind of the Damian Lillard thing really, really hurts what they're trying to do. Tony will be writing all sorts of good things about the Cavs going throughout the season, not about the Bucks. About the Cavs, which will be good. Tony will be doing that, and I'll be commentating and hopefully doing a lot of Cavs clapping here in the fall. Tony there, I'm Andy Billman here. See you all throughout the Cavs season.